All right. Okay, so gonna do. We have a lot of this going on about the virus at this point in time. So uh, I'm not gonna do any teaching on that. Yeah. What I am gonna focus on is the effects in the world of why things like this are going on, and that it's a healing crisis. Yeah, that uh, it's a learning tool for humanity. That there's always a process when we go through this. Before this, none of us, no, most people, wouldn't consider staying at home if they had a cold or a little sniffle. Yeah, and everybody advertises it's better to just take some suppressant and keep the symptoms at bay, and that way you can walk around without anybody knowing you're carrying a virus. And that's the truth of it. Yeah, but uh, and up to this point in time, that's not what anybody has a conscious mind of, because most people live in a subconscious world, not in a conscious world. Yeah. So if they were in a conscious world, they would know all that I just said. It's nature. It's just nature. We're one step up from animal. And therefore we can think. And we can relate. And if we have this consciousness, rather than we're driven by the animal instincts of subconsciousness, to where you really don't think anymore, you're just reacting, and your mind is kind of without thought. So you follow, you hear things, and you go, oh, that's probably true. Oh, that's probably true. Oh, that's probably true, because everything else is at a higher level. When you're in this subconscious state. So it's just like being a pet. you know, and you find all kinds of people as your masters that you immediately want to be subservient to or try and take control of, like an animal, and it's not like people are animals, but there are kingdoms, and we relate according to kingdoms, and we have a kingdom of the soul that is a real reality, and it's experienced by the hierarchy. So it really takes lifting into conscience and consciousness and out of the subconscious area to where you're just following habits. And you don't know you're following habits until you're ready, almost killed, because your habits blind you so much that you keep following like a sheep and you go right over the edge. Every single person does it. Yeah? You're all following the sheep and going right off the edge, And I'm doing everything I can to get you to realize you're not a sheep. Yeah? And there are signs, like when you sneeze and you get a cold. It doesn't take much to realize, that I could be getting sick. Well, I could also be getting someone else sick. But what about the reality that sickness could go on to maybe 30 or 40 other people who I don't know, never will know, and 2 of them die? An old person, sedentary person dies maybe 6 months later because they were weakened by this and got pneumonia slowly but surely. Kidneys fail. This is because the person didn't want to stay home and not harm anybody because they didn't see harm in just having a virus. But if we had more, if we were taught more along the line of consciousness, developing consciousness using meditation, using skills that allow us to be in service to other people, go through hardship, and learn how to not just think for yourself, but do things as a group in order to make things better for everybody, and we want to go through that. We go to the Boy Scouts, we go in the military, we think we're going to get all these benefits, but the real reality of it is that most of those things are beating us down again in our subconscious, where we're doing things that we're really not being taught what we're doing or the things that are going on, So, it's like war or anything that we move into, there's all kinds of information that's misleading. And unless we develop our our higher conscious mind, you know, we won't be that one person out of 1,000 who stands up and says, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm certainly not going to do this, and it really is difficult to go into that direction. It's a matter of being able to step up against the energy and the influence and the people. You can see it today. We have a virus. There are possibly 250,000 people that are going to die from this thing in just the next 2 months. But if people don't behave, we'll have over 1.2 million people die from it over the year. Because it just keeps going. Once it's kind of eradicated and helped out, then all of a sudden we realize Mexico hasn't done anything. Texas is not going to do anything. New York is slow in trying. Now they're coming up. And those who have gotten through on the outside states, because they isolated, are now afraid of even coming near or having anybody out of New York come near them. Because they didn't isolate. And they're carrying the virus like crazy. And that's in every state. We have 50 states, and all of them are independent. Yeah? And yet we're supposed to be the United States. By the people, for the people. We should have a collective consciousness. But we're not given the educational tools to be in that place where we can make the decisions without being told by a president or by a governor or by our boss. This is what we should do, because even the boss, you, everybody else agrees. I'm not going out. I don't want to harm anybody. If I go out, I could get it. I can give it to my kids. I can get it and then pass it to someone else, and I don't know I did that. And it only can happen if you come in contact with people like that. Yeah. So it's really hard to get that across. But it's a learning lesson once we do that. Because now we can filter that down to a whole bunch of other things. What causes harm by our individual selfishness? Yeah? We've learned that cigarette smoke affects the person next to you more than it does you. Yeah, that means the baby inside the womb, that means the baby sitting at the edge of the bed, that means all the other kids in the room, that means grandpa sitting there, every single person. And that one person who's smoking just saying, I have a right. You're not going to tell me to go outside. I'm going to flick it on you. They get really radically ridiculous. And it's that animal. It's that selfish person. Yeah, that lack of humanity. Yeah, and it's been a long time getting people to foster higher conscience and higher consciousness so that they themselves choose to get rid of the cigarette, get rid of drinking, yeah, get rid of eating fast food and all the stupid things that come your way just because they can, just because they do, just because your friends want to drink a lot, want to eat a lot, and and they tell you on the commercials, you all go to Fridays and you eat all the sides and you eat all the main food and you eat double what you should when you go to Wendy's or Burger King, Yeah? They tell you that's what you do, and it really isn't what you do, But it didn't take long for everybody to kind of follow along with that. And after about 10 years, the mass majority of people have diabetes. Because we just go right off the cliff if we don't develop our conscience. So it takes things like this in order to move people closer to the soul. An accident or horrendous experience makes a person think, boy, am I lucky to be alive. Yeah. Second chance here. Yeah. Really just missed the bullet on that one. And then makes you think about, wow, maybe it is a good idea not to go outside when I have a cold. Maybe better idea not to take cold medicine thinking that I don't have a cold. just wade through it. So all the symptoms clear naturally. And if you suppress any of them, then you'll go back out, and you'll think this thing is going to... And that process has a deep, deep, deep influence on humanity because it weakens the immune system. People are constantly having colds, constantly dying of colds and flus, and because their immune system's going lower and lower and lower. The doctor says, I'll give you antibiotics. Now you can't take any antibiotics because you've had too many antibiotics, and your kidneys are shutting down. All these different things go on because we follow through with stuff that we think that are really the best idea to do. And we don't have meditation, and we don't have the things it takes in order to increase our consciousness. It's not about, reading books or things like that. It's the more that these tools have been on the planet, the more people have activated having them in their lives and using them on a daily basis and all that. It has literally changed the conscious pattern of the planet. The relationship of Buddhism, you would think Buddhism would be the furthest thing from some high Rinpoche walking around saying Jesus Christ is Buddha. And not get kicked out. Not be unauthorized as a Rinpoche anymore. But that's my reality. I'm the highest Rinpoche in Tibetan Buddhism. I teach anywhere and everywhere. And I teach about Christ, my incarnation as the reincarnation of Christ. And people in their lower conscious mind doesn't see that because they're receiving all this information, telling them to take cold medicine and take this and that and pay your dues, tithings, come to the church, we'll meet you up with Jesus, and, get you connected, and all this stuff, And yet, all within it all, both the government and within the Catholic Church and within Tibetan Buddhism, they all know Jesus Christ incarnated way by the time I was 9 years old. It was a really big thing. A lot of people were told, not just my parents. So that influences what's counter-affecting the increase of consciousness and the release of the suppressed energies that come with a healing crisis inside of people. And it's not the cause of this virus. The virus is there because we have weaknesses and we're susceptible, and it's going to continue because of our behavior. And until we change our behavior on every level, we're going to be always susceptible to these things because we're ignorant. And we're just wallowing through the process, and we got to hear from somebody to tell us, stay at home, or, this virus will kill you. A flu will kill you. Take your flu shot. Don't take a flu shot. When you start getting sick, or anybody is sick, please stay at home, and we won't have the flu. Every single virus has to do with people's selfishness in the process of dealing with their illness. I think even going to a hospital is really not a good idea. Doctors should immediately go to your home, take care of you in your home, give you what you need in your home, and have a therapist come take care of you if you need breathing apparatus or any kind of nursing or anything like that. But the first thing is take people with viruses out of a hospital, so that the virus doesn't become the hospital, because it's an incubation point. And it easily spreads, So there's really a lack of people having an understanding of consciousness to deal with things like this, because we haven't dealt with it on very subtle levels. I worked in the hospital. I created the IV bottle. I created the machines that go onto the heart and monitor people. I did that while I was in the Navy, while I was in the hospital situation. I invented those things, It would have been a long time before we would have moved ahead. We had ridiculous glass bottles that worked by gravity, and they went into the vein, and when they backed up a bit, that blood went back up and come out, and the person would bleed out. There'd be no control. When the bottle went empty, air started going into the vein. You had to catch it right on time. Very dangerous. Every single thing was an open infection point. Every connection. So every time they had to stick another needle into the person, they were opening to another infection. Every time they had to reinsert a needle, they were opening to another infection. So I created the ability for them to insert the needle into the line, keeping the whole thing a sterile field, a closed sterile field. And I did that in everything that went in the body. I reinvented it all. I did that. I don't get anything for it, but that process of conscious, when you're in the job, it will drive you crazy when everything's not conscious. And I was only 19 years old when I did that, So, I'm Jesus and sure a master and would obviously have these talents, but for me, it was just a point of reference to just how bad things really are in relationship to conscience and consciousness. Because people don't have a reference to conscience because they don't know anything's going wrong. They can't see a fix-it or a need. They just go along with it, as though this is the way it is. Where in reality, there's all these different, when I was there was a million of things that would pop into my mind that would make things better, safer, healthier. Because harmlessness is the human nature. It's what makes us heroes. Every single person who performs a heroic act is a person who fights against harm. Automatically. It's just what you do. And you don't know why you're doing it or how you did it, but it happens. And harmlessness is really the nature of the human being. It's our instincts. It's our martial art. It's what we give to the human reality and all the other kingdoms. We are caretakers for all the kingdoms because we are harmless. Does that make sense? And we can only be harmless if we have conscience and consciousness. So the elevating of consciousness is a science. It's not a religion. Most of the religions that are in humanity are not based on God. They're based on relationships of human thought in reality around God. A belief system. Either a prophetic belief or a belief that's written down and restructured and re-understood, or events that take place and then misinterpreted and over-exaggerated. So whether it be a cult or a religion or anything, go into it, dive into it, and you'll find an enormous amount of the kind of dogmatic reality that sits in it. And it doesn't allow the other religions to exist. It's like really no. You can't have Buddhism if you have Muslims. Muslims, no. You can't have Muslims if you're going to have Buddhists, And you can't have Christians, and Jews in the same building, All these religious realities are all human characteristics, human teachings, and human belief systems that try and make sense of a relationship to God, or a relationship to God consciousness, or God anything, any relative relationship. But it doesn't give the answer. It's not God. And God comes from consciousness. It's higher mind. It comes from consciousness. So it really, like all the tools that I do, I don't talk a religion behind it. I don't mention anything. I name things by angels. A deva, or an ascension, or things of that nature. I name something maybe Metatron, because that's really the highest angelic relationship to an angel. And different things of that order are in my tools in order to invoke higher consciousness. Because we have all these names and terms, like we know the electron, and then inside of us we have no idea to the origin of anything, when in reality it comes from God, and the word comes from God. So if you think of the electron comes from Metatron. Yeah. And the relationship of Metatron is that Metatron is Dorje, or the energy of electricity. Yeah. The embodiment of matter. Yeah. And by using psychokinetic ability, the will of God, Metatron is made into form. And he looks like God. He has the likeness of God, because he's made in the essence of God. So he's called Little Yahweh. Yeah? Yeah, just study it. It's very intriguing, very interesting, yeah? And it helps us realize that, the higher consciousness has a direct relationship to our evolution. We didn't know about electricity until the mid-1800s, maybe even back all the way to Egypt, batteries and things like that. But we didn't really harness it. But the more that you studied into it, light and electricity and that phenomenon, the closer you got to God. Yeah? So all those sciences were directly related to God, if you go back into history. Yeah? Even the relationship of electricity, if you study the relationship of Babaji, yeah, he had a student named Yukteswara, and Yukteswara was given the teachings of the electron by Babaji. Yeah? And it's in his book. Yeah? Yeah? A Study of Life. There's a book given by Yukteswara. And it mainly talks about how in the late 1800s, Babaji was overwhelmingly needed to get science to the point of physics, to the point to where we can understand electricity and electronics, so we can begin developing technology. Yeah? But he had to move through the mind of India, because they were very much into the higher quantum mind, and they understand the zero and the one, which is what we base the relationship of all computer understanding. And that formula comes out of India, the zero and the one, and that comes out of Babaji, and that came out of the masters. Yeah? So all that was stimulated through a process of the monad to awaken conscious. Yeah? Because every time it came in, it was, this is going to save humanity. This is going to make things better. Yeah? It was a saving revelation. Every time that information would come in, because it was so new. Electricity, radio, I can make a television, I can make, all these things were just overwhelming to the lower mind, but the higher mind that was conscious in the moment was relative to Christ. Yeah? So all the real teachings that was coming from Christ throughout history was forming our relationship to new technologies, new advancements in science, and new advancements in consciousness. Yeah? So that we would develop sciences that would lead us to higher consciousness. Yeah? Not take us away from it, like nuclear war, things like that, but actually move us by having those things around us, like an electric car or a flying car, all these different things that are actually connected to the reality of our liberation. Yeah? If we were in a negative world where all things were to consume us and destroy us, and all negative as it is in the lower consciousness, if that was continued to evolve the way it is, we would have never gotten to an electric car. We'd never get to an autonomous car, because those are harmless lifestyles. Those things eliminate the accidents. Yeah? They eliminate more and more ego and allow people to be less ego and more creative. Yeah? Substantially more creative. Yeah? Yeah? So that opens up consciousness. So every one of these things that are moving inside of humanity, all these different things that are happening inside of humanity, are all part of the process. If we go back 10 years, if we go back even right now, all the things we're going to are to alter our consciousness at the end of the trial, at the end of the outcome of the trial. Yeah? So this process is to give us a big awakening. Yeah? But the biggest part of it, I think, is going to be the reality that more people will suffer than what we had thought. And that, because it's a cover-up. It's not being said how many people are really sick here and there. It's not really being said. Yeah. So once, after time goes by and we find, oh my God, It was a lot worse than we thought, yeah? If we had known, we would have done more, yeah? If we had known that it took 500,000 people, out of all the land of China over an 8-month period, not just one small little isolated area, but a very large portion of the place got hit, yeah? Yeah, if people had known that, they would have done something in Italy, they would have done something in Europe, they would have done something immediately. But they held it back for over a month without any sharing back and forth. Yeah? So it's that kind of influence that we're going to become more and more aware of on all levels, whether it be pedophilia or corruption with economy and misappropriation of all kinds of things, just because people are lazy and they just go ahead and do it without any real research or any checking it out. And money that is being given by tax people by the gazillions is just being thrown away down a toilet because there's no real consciousness. Yeah? It touches every level of this thing, and we're all under so much stress because of this lack of conscious. Yeah? So it's this process that's going to be quickened, and we're going to clean this thing up really quick and a lot, to where there's going to be less than a third of the kind of pedophilia and corruption that's going on today. There will be less than a third of that within the next 5 years. And that's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah? Simply because people are going to be caught, people are going to be pulled, and people are going to be said about. And, even the virus thing, and, how did you do that? Why did you send us bad, medicine? And all that kind of stuff. Why did this go on the way it did in each area? Why did it go on? Every question that gets asked finds out that it is led by enormous corruption, and it shouldn't carry any further. And then this is where the people come in, and that's where consciousness comes up. If we have subconscious, we follow. If we have conscious, we make choices. Yeah, and we can only do it psychically, at a higher level, and a psychic level of common sense and understanding, to where all the bullshit doesn't affect us, and we just are liberated at a point to where we can move the world to heal the world. Yeah? And that's what humanity has the ability to do. So let's do meditation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I wasn't going to talk about that. Okay, just repeat after me. I invoke the power, the love, and the wisdom of my ashram, soul, and monad. To guide me into the right activity in the plan. To clarify and stimulate my mind. To transform and transmute my feelings and emotions. To energize and vitalize and heal my physical and etheric body. So there is a normal flow of energy in my physical and etheric body. To this day and every day, I ask this in the name of the Christ to serve the One. All in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay, just relax. Okay, open your eyes. All right. So one of the things that would really make the quickening an advancement, which will happen later in life, but the main thing is the recognition of Christ being on the planet, and that there's been a long process of that, and coming to the house and the whole trip, and then later the making of the movie Little Buddha, and when I was explaining Little Buddha to the classes in London, in before Little Buddha was ever made, I explained the story of Maitreya, and that Maitreya and Jesus, I always said it, Maitreya and Jesus are not two separate people. That Maitreya means kindness, a really nice guy, a trustworthy friend, things like that. That's what it means. So it's not a name. It's a character. A person, kind of a personality. And so that's what Maitreya is known for. But that's his characteristic, and that characteristic then goes into other people, because that characteristic is what comes with consciousness in action. Just a certain kind of behavior, a way of being. And that's a Christ principle. But the difficulty is that humanity does not know about the long-going process of the Antichrist against the Christ, and that it wasn't not just during the time as Jesus and going on a cross and all of that. That's very Antichrist, And then, the fact of that, we all know about cover-ups, well, the biggest cover-up was the reality that Jesus actually resurrected and lived after death, and that he walked away. And that was a big embarrassment to the disciples and everybody in his hometown. Where did he go? No one knew, because no one cared where he came from. No one bothered to ask. No one was related to such things. Tibet, Ladakh, Nepal, India, why would you go there? Even having any conversation of that led no interest to the people where he was living in Jerusalem. Because they're all just going, what is this foreign talk, totally, it doesn't make any sense. Where is that in the prophecy? How does that fit? So there's always this enormous process of no one ever really getting to know Jesus. nothing of his past, nothing of his present. Yeah. So leaving and going on to where I went, it was documented. Yeah, a great deal of that was documented. So it's not really something you can cover up, since it was documented. And it's just a matter of me coming back, and because it's mine, it's me, and I have a very strong interest in revealing my life, for what it really is worth, and how it affects other people, and why it turned out the way it did in the real sense, and that it has everything. All that I did was for humanity, and leaving and going to Ladakh and on to India was for humanity, because that's the path humanity takes. I just continued that same path, and I went to the place and I created a large group of a gathering of people who were the highest minds on earth. Those would be perfect disciples to Jesus Christ. But that wasn't the point. The point was that these people had conscience and consciousness, and that they had such clear conscience and consciousness, they were able to take from me the interpretations of the teachings of Buddha and get them right, because that was my previous incarnation. And just like me trying to further and cleanse my life as Jesus, I also have to cleanse my life as Buddha. And any other previous life, whether it be Krishna or Shiva, any of my previous lives, all have to be cleared from an enormous amount of illusion and delusion and misinterpretation. So as Jesus, I had the greatest opportunity to gather these scholars and create the Mahayana, which became the steady focus of how we can attain Buddha's consciousness. Consciousness, that's all it was about. How can we get to the path of consciousness? We could do that if we stay on a thread clear line. A clear line, We have to interpret everything that's being said to our own personal nature. And it will ring true once it comes to our purity. We get to that, we have purity of mind, we have the same view, and we have self-realization as nature of Buddha. So it becomes a science. So the whole building of this group of scholars was to create a format of science that we then can put our faith into, that we will reincarnate, because that's the foundation of Buddha's teaching, is that we reincarnate. But yet that's not taught. The Dalai Lama doesn't teach it. Other people you talk, are you a Buddhist? Yeah. Well, what does that mean? They don't say, first off, you reincarnate. We all reincarnate. And that's really all there is to Buddhism, is getting to a conscious point to where you reincarnate. Now you have to be absolutely conscious throughout your life, because that thread of your consciousness is going to be passed into the next life. And if you're stupid in this life, you're going to be stupid in the next life. And every bad thing that happens to you in this life is your cause, nobody else's. And you could fix it all being harmless. So as Jesus, you would think that's really, wow, 12 disciples is nothing compared to Mahayana. And establishing the Mahayana, and establishing the teachings that we will follow through today on. To me, I'd rather have everybody remember me for what I really did, and rather than thinking that, the Dalai Lama pulled that off, or somebody else pulled that off, or in reality, I pulled that off. And I continued reincarnating with enormous numbers of people throughout the lineage of these masters. Knowing we reincarnate, we looked for each other. And as the spokesperson, I was the first person who called out, hi, I'm here, over here, over here. I remember you, you remember me, I remember you, okay. And if you study Babaji, the same thing happened with Babaji. It was all about reincarnation, and that his disciples, even though they were disciples, they were ignorant of reincarnation. That they were reincarnated. And they couldn't remember him or anything because they were completely in their subconscious reality, not in a conscious reality. Because conscious reality is the fact that you have reincarnated. And that should be a very enlightened state the moment you open your eyes. Yeah, it should be part of our enlightened state from people around us and everything that's involved in us. Yeah, so that's what makes us better and different. Yeah, and the more we come to understand that that's really the work of Jesus. It's not fostered by, Tibetan Buddhism. It was me that created Tibetan Buddhism. Jesus. So Tibetan Buddhism's not the Dalai Lama. It's Jesus. And it's a path that everybody can follow as long as I've got it cleared to where the people that you're following are actual true interpreters of the teaching. They follow the path, they behave along that path, and they are representatives of that path. And up to this point, we have a lot of false prophets inside of every group. So even in Tibetan Buddhism, they will not tell you about Jesus. But in Buddhism, Buddha declared Jesus was coming and not to take on him as the Messiah or anything, but it's Jesus who's Messiah. I'm going to show this, and then I'm going to end this. Number 2.
In the Buddhist scriptures of Cambodia, a prophecy regarding a holy one would come, one who would lead people away from the old way and introduce a new way. When Buddha was traveling and living in this world, there was an old breath.
Started.
In the Buddhist scriptures of Cambodia, a prophecy regarding a holy one would come, one who would lead people away from the old way and introduce a new way. When Buddha was traveling and living in this world, there was an old Brahmin priest who asked the Buddha, how will all men and all Brahmin continue in their merit-making so as to escape the results of sin? The Buddha answered, even though all of you give alms according to 5 precepts, the 8 precepts, the 10 precepts are the 227 precepts for 9 trillion years, and you raise your hands and offer yourselves as a burnt offering, or you pray 5 times a day, you will still not escape the results of your sin. If you do this every day, your merit gained will only be equal to the smallest strand of hair of an unborn infant, extremely small. You shall not enter heaven's doors. The old Brahmin priest asked further, what are we all to do to be saved? The Buddha answered, the results of sin and karma are very great, heavier than the sky, thicker than the earth, and so high that it would be like an angel dusting the corner post of the temple compound with a cloth post that are 18 inches high, dusting them 1 time per year until the posts were worn down to the ground. When the posts are worn down, that's how long it would take to endure sins. The Buddha said further, I have given up my high position and entered the priesthood. I considered that even though I am good, I would have only a very small amount of merit at the end of the year. If I was given this same amount of merit for 100,000 epochs and live 10 more lifetimes, I would not be saved from sin's results even once. The old Brahmin priest asked further, so what shall we all do? The Buddha answered, keep on making merit and look for another holy one who will come and help the world and all of you in the future. Then the old Brahmin priest asked, what will the characteristics of the Holy One be like? The Buddha answered him, the palm of his hand and in the flat of his feet will be the sign of a disc. In his side, a stab wound, and his forehead will have many marks like scars. This Holy One This will be the golden boat which will carry you over the cycle of rebirth all the way to the highest heaven. Do not look for salvation in the old way. There is no salvation in it for sure. Quit the old way. And there will be a new spirit like the light of a lightning bug which will come down from the sky, about to live in all your hearts, and you will be victorious over all your enemies. Nobody will be able to destroy you. If you die, you will not come back to be born in this world again. You will go to the highest heaven, that is nirvana. Buddha was correct about the uselessness of trying to earn merit. The prophecy was fulfilled. When Jesus Christ died on the cross to take away the human sin, through Jesus alone, one can find perfect assurance that the highest heaven is opened by God's grace, not by our own works.
So that is Buddha. Yeah. So what happened after Buddha? Just 500 years later, Jesus incarnates. And there is a historical cycle around Jesus that's not told, but yet it's in history. So I'm going to give 5 minutes for that.
Beckon the spirit of exploration. Some of them have the potential to completely alter our perception of history. One such intriguing history is lying quietly since more than 1,900 years in this Kanyar locality of Srinagar. This place conceals one of the biggest mysteries of the modern world, the Rosable Shrine, burial place of Yuza Asaf. This board displays an information about the book Tarikh-e-Azam, written in 1729 AD by Khwaja Azam Dedmari. This spot is famous as the resting place of a messenger. I have read in an ancient book that a prince from a foreign land arrived here and engaged himself in piety and prayers and became messenger of God for the Kashmiri people. What is intriguing is that since always this Yuza Asaf is considered to be none other than Jesus Christ himself, the savior of mankind. A number of Sanskrit, Buddhist, Persian, Arabic and Kashmiri historical texts show that Yuza Asaf is another name of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is not the original name of the Savior. His original Hebrew name was perhaps Yeshua. His name in other languages are derivatives of this Hebrew name. According to these texts, Jesus did not die on the cross. He survived the crucifixion and migrated to live in Kashmir. In Kashmir, he preached for a long time and finally left his physical frame at a very old age. And this is supposed to be his tomb. The shrine is beautifully decorated and lighted. The carvings of Kashmiri designs add to the grandeur of the place. The air is filled with fragrance of the divine. The tomb itself is of a pre-Islamic period. This old photograph shows that the wooden coffin was actually covered with a cloth of Jewish appearance. This huge wooden sarcophagus which we see is only a facade. The real tomb is in the underground chamber which is sealed now. The tomb lies in east-west direction, which is distinctly the Jewish direction of burial. It cannot be a Muslim tomb because Muslims bury their dead in southwest direction. We all know that Jesus Christ was a born Jew. In the 18th century, the Grand Mufti of Kashmir was the highest court of law in this land. In 1766 AD, he issued a decree regarding the Rosable Shrine. According to this decree, User Asaf was a prophet to the people of Kashmir, and he had come to Kashmir during the reign of King Gopananda. It is well known that King Gopananda ruled Kashmir during the 1st century AD. This matches exactly with the time period of Jesus Christ. There is another very tantalizing evidence. These are the footprints of User Asaf. They show deep marks of wounds, something like those of crucifixion. Well-known scientist Kurt Berner has examined these marks and says that this is exactly how the feet of Jesus were nailed on the cross, one upon the other, pierced with a single nail.
There's no doubt in my mind that Jesus and Asaf are exactly the same person. I think the evidence is overwhelming.
There are several websites which provide detailed information on this subject. They contain a wide range of information on every aspect of the life of Christ in India. There have been several national and international researchers who strongly share this belief. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, the founder of the Ahmadiyya sect of Islam, published his Urdu book Masih Hindustan Mein, or Christ in India, in the late 19th century. He did a detailed research on Rosable Shrine and studied the local traditions of the people of Kashmir. He collected signatures of a large number of local inhabitants of Kanyar in support of his theory. Aziz Kashmiri's book, Christ in Kashmir, is one of the most authoritative works on the subject. Andreas Faber-Kaiser wrote, Jesus died in Kashmir. Jesus, Moses, and 10 lost tribes of Israel. Holger Kirsten's book, Jesus Lived in India, created quite a stir in the West. Edward Martin is the author of King of Travelers, Jesus' Lost Years in India. Some of the most comprehensive books are written by Fida Hasnain and Suzanne Olson. Rosable, The Tomb of Jesus, and The Rosable, Beyond the Da Vinci Code. It is really hard to believe that Jesus Christ had any connection with India, leave alone the story of his life and death in Kashmir. The mainstream Christianity scoffs at any such idea. Christianity is based on the faith that Jesus died on the cross, was resurrected, and then ascended to the heaven to sit next to God. Every faith has its own reasons. The Roman Church was established on this very faith. And this very faith has made Christianity the largest religion in the world. We all adore, love, and hold Jesus Christ dear in our hearts as one of the saviors of mankind. Still, the human mind is always curious.
Interesting, hey? Yeah. And in that process, you don't see anything coming out of Christianity talking about this, and you don't see anything coming out of Buddhism talking about it. Yeah, but at the same time, Buddhism is not denying it. You know, it's the one place that I've found that I can actually walk into and teach and be enthroned and be recognized for my previous incarnations, and also teach that I'm Jesus, in this reincarnation, and not a batting of an eye. Everybody gets it. It's part of their teaching. It's expected of me to say these things in order to dispel the glamours that holds everything into the illusion that it's in, So I'm just going to show the last thing, and that's a video that is some enthronements and things. This monastery was established right after my birth, and it's called the Maitreya Monastery. It's Maitreya Vihar, and it's my monastery established for me to have a place to teach out of and work with all of Tibetan Buddhism, but as Jesus, where I can safely say I'm Jesus without anybody doing anything. So that's So we are all Dharma practitioners of Gautama Buddha, and the Dharma activities that we try and initiate help to establish peace on earth. As Buddha Maitreya, my Dharma is the same as Dharma as Gautama Buddha, but my Dharma has a collective, empowering grace that allows people to receive their blessings from previous lives and to awaken the Dharma that they put into every life, so I can help to further that Dharma. So my activity is basically just to help, to be of service and to understand the needs of our Dharma and our activities and how difficult it is for them to manifest in a world where there is so much bad karma. So I bring all my Dharma from Gautama Buddha, all my activity in relationship to Gautama Buddha. And I bring the Dharma of Maitreya Buddha, so that the influence of your activities will flourish. They will not dissipate. They will grow, and I will protect them. You are a refugee from Tibet, yeah? That can bring great sadness, yeah? Every word and activity we put into our daily prayer will become a wish-fulfilling jewel that will manifest in the future and every day more and more in your present day. So don't let anybody tell you that Tibetan Buddhism or Buddhism is getting smaller. Grow, and it will become the dominant philosophy and the dominant lifestyle of all of humanity. Even through suffering, out of that is enormous transformation. So now we're in the process of being able to see the change and enjoy the revelation. Be happy, please.
Visit his residence.
I will. Yeah. You wear this, yeah? Yeah. Use this in your puja. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I've been traveling all over this planet where masters exist, and I'm asked to go back into their monasteries, and where I established that monastery, and I'm re-enthroned, and I introduce them to my tools. I introduce them to all my CDs and all my tools, and I give them solar forms and weavers and vajras, and just like you saw there. So all the way to the highest monasteries in Laytong, and Ladakh, and India, and Nepal, and you name it. Whoop, there you go again. Yeah, and the influences of them being able to receive this bridge of what I'll be teaching in the future and what I used to teach in the past. I used to teach about Shambhala and sacred geomancy and the application of building stupas and why. And all the forms and formulas that are built in Tibetan Buddhism are based on my philosophy and my physics. Sound, chakras, all of that is based on my physics. Yeah. So by giving them these tools and everything, it helps bring balance to their chakras and their higher mind without having to think of why did all this happen to me and what karma have I done and work out as though they had impurities. They receive the tools just like everybody in humanity is receiving the tools, because I'm here to provide redemption. I'm not here to judge. It's the churches that tell you that I'm here to judge. Yeah, Armageddon, it's the end, and we're going to have everything go wrong, and then you can blame it on Jesus, Yeah, you can blame it on God, and first earthquake, whang, it's got to be Jesus, so the reality is what it is, we have to deal with life, and life is hard, and then we die. That is what it is. Yeah, there is no difference. If you're in some utopian ideology and you can sit under a tree for all your life, it's still going to be hard and you're still going to die. So you're never going to get past that. Yeah, it's what you do, how you cope with it. Yeah, the energy you put out and the life changes that you make is what's going to be different in your next life. Yeah, so I'm trying to teach people to realize a vision, not prophetic religious visions, but visions of society. Think of society and where it needs to be. We need to be in little tiny houses, not great big mansions. Those mansions are killing us. We need to be people who are not football players and basketball players and all that kind of stuff where you make gazillions of dollars for nothing. We don't want to be that. And in that process of us being this simple, moderate, modest Buddhist, which is what Buddhism is, it's when you really cut things down, you let things go. You let your pets go, you let all your garbage around your house go, you clean it up and you turn it into a freaking temple. You paint your house, you make it nice even if you're poor. That shows you're a Buddhist. That shows that you're a good human being. And no matter how poor you are, no matter how bad your situation is, you've got respect. And that's what gives light to people. If you show no respect about yourself, you're going to get no respect. Yeah? So it's just a matter of turning everything around. And if we live small and we keep it clean and organized, we'll be teachers for humanity rather than the problem. We'll be the way showers. Yeah? And the little people, the most meek people on the planet, are going to be the people who lead the world. They're going to lead everybody, even the nerds, who just want to, drive their electric cars. Those are really meek people. You sit with one, they're just about as meek as you can get. They'll just sit for 9 hours doing a singular act, and that's pretty meek, and where everybody else is running around, got to do all these things, got to have all this going on, So there's certain groups of people that are on this planet that have extreme energy that could be moved into the future, seeing things for the future and being able to put their mind into it and then start settling down rather than having a career till they're 60 years old and then die at 65, You're better off having a career until you're 35 years old. And live really modestly after that. But build up all your skills so by the time you're 35, you're the best carpenter anybody knows, or you're the best anything at making something. Yeah? And then you can retire from that point on because you're living on your craft. You're just having a happy day. You're doing all the things you wanted to do. Does that make sense? Yeah? Rather than working for someone. If you put your time and energy toward that, you all have a very different scenario. And instead of getting out of school, getting married right away, you'd be much better off, just, living as small as you possibly can. And you build your house and get your little thing together and, make a small imprint and develop your craft. Yeah? And get everything as you want it to be, because it'll all come to you. That's the art of the influence of the chakras. When we actually are awakened to this fourth ray energy that is humanity and is this earth, we get powerful abilities to do things with our hands and do things with skills that we think is awesome that somebody else could do. But once you learn how to do it, it is an idiot could do it. Yeah, because all the skills is in the doing. And it's just a matter of focusing your mind and staying conscious. If you're conscious, you can do skillful things. If you're not conscious, they are messed up, all screwed up, look ugly, don't work, fumbly, no one will ever hire you. Yeah, because you have no higher conscious. Does that make sense? Yeah. So to me, that's how we develop our higher conscious, is by lowering our stress, lowering all kinds of things that we've got going on in that term, and focus on the skills of what we can do with things. All right, enjoy. Have a happy day. Stay away from people. Please.